We're here in TechCrunch headquarters right now in San Francisco, and I'm here with the Mobile Crunch editor, Greg Kumparak, who just saw the iPad 2. You got to play with it, right, for a while? So what are your initial thoughts?
It is what we expected. You know, I mean, the rumor mill kind of indicated that it was going to be the iPad 1 improved. That's how Apple tends to do things. You know, they take their first iteration, they polish it up, and they release kind of a minor update. They never really overhaul on the second run.
So what were specifically the new features that Apple introduced with the new iPad?
So there's a new A5 processor, which they claim is 2 times as fast and then 9 times as fast graphically. It's 8.8 millimeters, so it's about 33% thinner than the last generation. It's a little bit lighter, 1.3 pounds as opposed to 1.5 pounds. Same display size. It's kind of tapered off around the edge, really thin. There's a front camera, there's a rear camera, FaceTime support, and then they're also introducing HDMI out to TVs.
But the display is the same. I know there's been a whole lot of rumors over whether or not it's going to get some increase in resolution, or maybe they shift the way that the display is made so that there's a wider screen viewing angle or something like that. Is it identical?
As Apple didn't mention anything new, I took a brief glance at the spec sheet and it looked identical, so it seemed like the same exact screen.
Okay, so so we can read the spec sheets, but when you actually get your hands on the device, and what's the first thing that really popped out at you as being different from the original iPad? Is it the fact that it's thinner? Is it the weight?
It's really, really thin. 8.8 millimeters that's thinner than the iPhone 4, which is already pretty thin. This feels like a big iPod Touch, and I don't mean that in an insulting way. Like to be honest, I kind of wanted to frisbee it just because it's so flat and so thin. I just wanted to see how it would fly, but it's insanely thin.
Does it feel pretty sturdy? Like, I don't really know how the feeling of sturdiness really correlates to whether or not it actually is, but is this one of those where you pick it up and it feels like something you could really toss around the room and it wouldn't shatter, or is this something like you drop it a little bit and it's probably going to shatter?
It does feel pretty sturdy because it's all aluminum and all glass, or the aluminum back and the glass front, as opposed to some of the other things like the touchpad. It's got that plastic back. A lot of the other tablets that are coming up have that plastic back, and it just feels kind of cheap. This one, in build quality, it feels really similar to the iPad 1.
Okay. And so as far as actually using the device, when the speed improvements, is this something that people are going to be like, whoa, it's so fast? Because my iPad, it never felt particularly slow. I'd say the biggest issue I had was with memory.
Yeah, it's hard to gauge that right now just because we're comparing kind of a brand new iPad 2 to, I mean, my iPad 1, I've bogged it down like crazy. But even then, my iPad 1 is already pretty snappy. And when I was playing with it today, it felt faster. But like I said, it could be just because it's brand new out of the box. But it's inherently going to be faster because of the way faster processor.
Did you happen to try opening up? I mean, the big restriction that I've run into on the iPad is that I can only have like 2 browser tabs open. And then you open a third one, you switch back to the first one, it's forgotten all the content on there and has to reload it. Is this something you tried in the browser to see how many things you could open?
That was actually the thing I went to go try when the Apple rep said, "Oh, you're out of time. Come on, we got a line."
So, it's like he knew.
Yeah, I know. That was the one question I wanted answered too. So,
have you seen any reports elsewhere that indicate? I mean, this is one of the things Apple didn't talk about, was whether or not the device has more onboard memory, right?
Yeah.
I mean, the assumption seems to be that it probably does. That's my fingers crossed. If it doesn't, boo on Apple. But
yeah, haven't heard either way. I don't think it is. I think it's still the same.
So do you think this is going to be something that, I mean, obviously the iPad has so much momentum at this point. Apple could have re-released the exact same product and it still would have kept selling millions of units a month. Is this something that people who have the first iPad are going to go out and say, I really need this now, or is it going to be primarily new adopters of the device who are going to get the iPad 2?
See, I'm a gadget geek, and I want everything new. And this is the first Apple product in a while that I've kind of been, I don't really need the new one. I'm happy with my iPad 1. And just because the main drive for now, until developers really start taking advantage of the dual-core processor, it is the front and rear cameras. And the rear camera, I'm not really going to be pulling this big thing out of my pocket when I have my iPhone. And with the front camera, I'm still kind of seeing video chatting as a novelty just because, while I do travel a lot, the people that I talk to most don't also do video calling. So video calling isn't a big thing for me, so no. Anybody that has the iPad 1, the video calling isn't a big thing for.
Okay, so you don't think this is, I'm not going to, with my original iPad, I'm not going to sit and get jealous of everyone else who's got the whiz-bang new one.
Sure.
But how about how it compares to what's already, the competitors that are going to be out there, the Honeycomb tablets, the Playbook, and so on? Is this something that, does the iPad 2 really change the game again? Or, I mean, my stance, having not used it, is it seems more iterative. It keeps Apple, on par in terms of tech specs with the other ones, but it's not something that's really going to kill everyone else. Which is, I've seen some bloggers say this kills everyone, but I don't really think that's the case.
This is kind of a bigger topic. But right now, Apple, like they announced today, they have 90% of the tablet market. You know, the way I kind of see it, like, I like Honeycomb, and I really like WebOS on a tablet. Mm-hmm. But I don't think the tablet market is currently anywhere as big as people assume it is. I think that the iPad was really successful because they're riding on the momentum of past Apple products. It was Apple's next big thing, you know. And now all these other people, HTC, Motorola, and Palm HP, they're all diving in because they need a tablet. They need a tablet, and I don't necessarily think that everybody needs a tablet anywhere as bad as they think they do.
So you think the iPad is successful because it's an Apple product, as opposed to it's this thing that people didn't realize they really wanted?
Right.
See, my stance on why the iPad has been so successful, I think it does have a lot to do with the fact that it's an Apple product, but I think it's also that the user experience, it can really serve as a replacement computer. Like if I were to buy, my mom, I just gave her an iPad, an older one, and she loves it, and I find that she uses it probably just as much as her computer these days, because she can do most of the things that she was doing on her computer before. And I think that's what it's great for, because you with the iPad, you're not winding up with a bunch of stuff you've accidentally downloaded to your desktop or a bunch of system updates you have to deal with. So I do think it's a good replacement. And that's one of the reasons why I'm questioning whether or not these other tablet OSs are going to be as successful if they don't cater to this audience that has struggled with computer, some of the like Windows or even Mac OS X in the past. Then I'm not so sure there's going to be such a big market for that.
But I feel like those things are more of a software issue than a form factor issue. Like when you really think about it, I don't feel like the tablet form factor is necessarily better for most of the uses that people are using it for. For entertainment, it's great on a couch, but after a while, it starts to get annoying to have to hold this thing up, to have a case to prop it up. For browsing the web, it's fantastic, but it's really, in most cases, it's not better than a laptop.
Speaking of this, and going back more directly to the iPad too, did you get a chance to try out those new applications that Apple announced, the iMovie or GarageBand apps on the iPad?
Really, really briefly, and it was more of watching over someone's shoulder as they demonstrated it. And they look awesome.
Like, yeah, they do look awesome, but the thing in my head, I was like, if I'm going to be editing a movie or editing a music file that has multiple instruments involved, precision really counts when you're doing that. And I'm curious to see whether or not that really translates to this touch interface where you're dragging and dropping things. But it will be more intuitive, I'm sure. Yeah,
one of the nice things is that they're really playing up the fact that you can start on the iPad and then just migrate right over to OS X, especially with the GarageBand. And so you can start it and maybe lay a couple beats or whatever, and then jump into iPad on OS X for the precision factor. But then again, why wouldn't you just start on OS X on your laptop?
Who knows? I like my MacBook Air. It's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
The new MacBook Air. Anyway, so I think that does it for this special episode of talking about the iPad 2. It comes out, when is it, March 8th?
March 11th.
March 11th, so it's only a little over a week away.
Yep.
So we'll find out more and how good it is, and I'm sure I'll have plenty of reviews to read soon.